righty. Welcome back to Team Spirit with your hosts, Emily.
Carrie.
And Lauren.
And today we're talking about mediumship.
Ooh, it's a hot topic.
Yeah, it is. Where to begin?
Oh my gosh, where to begin is right. Well, why don't we start off by talking about our development in mediumship and what that looks like? And there maybe are some listeners, I know a lot of our listeners, and many of them are looking into development or wanting to develop more and kind of like how we got started on our mediumship journey. So, Em, do you want to take the lead?
Sure. So I've always been a medium, but just didn't know it until very recently. Like when I was little, I'd always sleep with the covers over my head because I was scared of things that I more or less I felt more than I saw or heard. It was a feeling or a knowing that there was other beings with me besides myself. And then, I would be in certain places, especially like old places like houses or, touring an old building or something. And I would get visions in my mind's eye, but I just thought that was me imagining like how they used to live. So it wasn't until really we met Carrie Koss that I realized, holy shit, I've been doing this my whole life. Because I really, going into it, and I think a lot of people think this, I thought like once I developed, I was going to like see past spirits the way that I'm seeing you right now and like having a conversation like this. I didn't realize that what I was doing my whole life was actually mediumship. And that's really how it is for the most part, seeing it in your mind's eye, hearing it in your mind's eye. I mean, occasionally it's external, but it's typically internal. Would you agree, Carrie?
Yeah, I always thought like an apparition would just show up and be like,
Yes.
"Hi, I'm Ted.
Yeah,
I
same.
died in 1992.
Right.
I got into a car crash."
Right.
That's what I thought.
And really it's kind of like interpreting another language
Yeah.
because depending on the spirit, it some of them just say random words, some will say random dates, and then you got to interpret random numbers even. So you got to interpret, is that an age, is that a date, what is that?
Right, because it's random to you guys, but it means something to them. And they're hoping that when you get that message to who's listening, they will also be like, oh,
Right.
I recognize that.
And sometimes the person doesn't. It depends on how well they know their loved one. And you also can't control who comes through. So you might the sitter might be going into the reading wanting to connect with grandma or grandpa, but their great grandmother that they barely knew comes through for them. And
right,
it's
and that's
hard.
something you can control. You can't be like, excuse me, grandma.
Right.
Time, come in.
Right.
Can't control spirit.
No. So yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot more to it than just talking to spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of nuance.
And it's something that I'll be developing forever.
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah.
And I think of like, there's so much to say when it comes to mediumship because there's so many opinions specifically with mediumship. And I understand because it is very, very personal. As somebody that has suffered a lot of loss, a lot of, people in my life that have passed away, I get it. It is serious, and medium should absolutely take that job very respectfully, with integrity, with ethics. So I do want to start off by saying that. But, when it comes to how each individual medium connects to spirit, that's going to look different for everyone. There's no like black and white book on mediumship of this is how you do it correctly. There's mediums that rely heavy on symbols, and they've worked with their guides to form this dictionary of symbols, of meanings. And let me tell you, like, some of those readings can be very precise, very, very accurate, but not everybody works that way. Some people get too caught up in the symbolism, and it feels too generic to them in the way that they read. So it's more of like we're in a wide open space, and that's how we were trained, of like observing everything around us, because you could see a balloon and assume it's a birthday party, but a balloon could mean something completely different. And because you have that symbol, you automatically associate it to a birthday. So it's hard. Mediumship is hard. And it's not that connecting to the spirit is hard. Anybody can do it. It's really just about trusting yourself. I mean, I feel like when it comes to developing your mediumship abilities, 90% of it is like, yes, we're definitely fine tuning these abilities that already exist within each of us, but it's really about training your human to like go along with the ride and just let go of that control and be willing to accept whatever comes through, because it's not going to make sense to you and it's not supposed to make sense to you. How could it possibly? And it's like, we want to control it. Our human wants to be in control, and our human wants to have that accuracy. So when you get something way out of the blue, it's a little bit scary because you feel like you're going out on a limb, and because you can't understand how this could make sense. But it will. It's not for us to understand, it's for the sitter to understand. And I think it's really important, like exactly what Emily said, is like you have to be open, because just like humans, living, breathing humans communicate differently. It doesn't end when you pass. It's like spirits also communicate very differently. And so you need to be respectful of that and how they communicate. Maybe they were a very quiet person. Maybe they were more reserved. Maybe they were more of an introvert, and you're going to feel that. That doesn't just go away. But opening yourself up, I feel like you need to be a safe place for not only the sitter, but also for the spirit to really feel comfortable coming through and communicating with you. And I actually did a live last night with Carrie on her Sacred Seer School platform, and it was the last reading of the night, and we had been reading for almost 3 hours. And one of the really big takeaways for me is because I had never done that many consecutive mediumships in a row, like outside of class, but these were much more in depth. These were paid. It was really wild to just see how different each mediumship was from the next, and where like my ego would step in at some points and be like, why is this one so much harder? Like, I just did this, I pulled through all this evidence, and there was one read in specifically that I was really struggling to connect. And once Carrie, my mentor, connected, well, they were around the same age, they were around the same generation. So while we were linked, that spirit felt more comfortable communicating with Carrie, and that's perfectly okay. But every single one of them felt different. The last one I had, it was very crystal clear. I had a grandfather and I saw a farmer and I heard farmer. And like, I don't know why, but there was a part of me that's like, that can't be like, what, how I just feel like that's very specific. And I said it, and it was her grandfather. He was a farmer. And so it's like, you have to let your human move out of the way, like just get out of the way. And also as the sitter, it's important to be open to, I think even as the sitter, maybe myself being a sitter on many occasions, you have an idea of the way that it's supposed to go. And you have these memories that are like core memories for you, and you are expecting that those memories to come through. But don't forget, this spirit lived a whole life, and they have their own core memories. So they're not going to necessarily bring through your core memories. They're going to be bringing through their core memories because it's a reflection of their life. Right. You know what I
That
mean?
is so important that you just said that, Carrie, because we've talked about this before, and I've seen it in your lives where it's you have your memory of this person that you wanna hear from. And so when you say they were happy, they were this, or they were kind of sad or whatever, like how they felt about their whole life. But when you knew them, you saw them as a grandparent, I'm sure they were happy around you. That's what you observed. That's your memories with them, but that doesn't mean that outside of your relationship they were happy all the time. And stepping out of your own memories, I think, is where you learn the most and absorb the most from what they're trying to say. We get caught up in what we want to hear. And I do it too. When you're like, okay, so and so comes through and they say this, I'll know it's you, but then you're not getting that. So you're like, oh, well, it can't be them then. And that's not always the case. And sometimes it does come through like that. They're like, they know. But I think like you said, almost every time, every single medium that I have watched or paid and had a session with, they always mention energy. And like you said, Carrie, that's one of the things you pick up on. And I think for a lot of older people who've passed, their energies probably are more reserved because it's something that they really didn't believe in. And so to trust this person with the message on the other, I'm sure that can be very difficult. For some of them, it's probably not, and they just come on barreling through, and that's probably why you hear from, Aunt Margaret, but not Grandma, because Aunt Margaret was like, I'm opinionated. Grandma's like, no, I'm not sure yet.
Exactly. It's a
So
blending
true.
of energy. That's exactly what it is.
And I can't
And
tell you how many spirits I've had that I knew for a fact they would not be cool with mediumship in their human lives.
I think I saw one of yours. And you said you were like, I'm just gonna be very upfront. Like, I don't think like it's this as hard because I don't think she seems very skeptic of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the first times that I was like, oh yeah, like I'm sure
Yeah.
that is a hard thing to trust.
Yep.
And especially when there's now like it's so easy to connect with a medium, it can be difficult for them also to trust to give the right message.
Absolutely.
it stretches the limits. It really just, of all the modalities for me, it's the one that I really have to get out of my own head. I really have to get out of my own head. And it's hard to do, and it's a process. I mean, it's not like I went to an incredible medium. I mean, she's unbelievable. And she is, very natural in her mediumship. And she's young, she's around our age. And I found her online and she had a ton of reviews and she's close to where I live. And I, as a gift, gave it to my mom. And we went because my mom always wanted to go see a medium. And so I sometimes still find myself comparing myself to her. And, because of just the accuracy and the way that she's able to really embody that personality. And it's like, I just remember it wasn't even really the evidence walking away from that mediumship read, but more when I was there, I felt like I could feel the energy. It felt like my family was in that room. And it was the way that she brought that out. But this is somebody that has dedicated years to solely mediumship. Yes, she's psychic. Yes, she has that background. But this wasn't something that happened overnight for her. And I remember her saying that she spent 2 years doing free readings. There's like a Maryland medium social media site or wherever where a bunch of mediums, developing mediums come and they all read each other. And it's like you can set it up, message each other, set it up. And she's like, I did that for 2 years. I can't compare myself to people like that. And I'm also Carrie. I'm not Lauren, I'm Carrie. And so the way I bring things through is going to be different than the way Emily brings things through, or the way our mentor, who is also just an incredible medium, is going to bring things through.
Yep.
So it's like we all have our strengths. And for those of you that are wanting to develop your mediumship abilities that are listening, it's not to discourage you. It's an incredible journey. And it's so rewarding to be able to give that peace to people who are grieving. One of the little things I'll just say is I do watch a lot of mediums on TikTok and stuff. And one thing that always stands out to me is I can tell who they are incredible. Like they are absolutely incredible and the accuracy is there and they are doing everything correctly, but the insecurity really shines through. And I have found that in those reads, if they're making it more about themselves and more about the what they're able to do and or what they're not able to do. And you can't forget about your sitter, because your sitter doesn't have that type of background. Your sitter doesn't have all the expectations or the judgment that we as mediums in the mediumship community put on ourselves. They just want to hear from their family that they miss and that they love. And that, I think we tend to get away from that sometimes because we're so worried about being right or wrong. And I've been guilty of this. My insecurities has shined through many times. I'm not perfect, but we can't get away from why we're here and what the point of this is. And it's to prove the continuity of life. And if you can do that and your sitter walks away feeling like they connected with their loved one, then you did your job, regardless of how you feel about what you did. Because we're always going to judge ourselves. We're our own worst critic. But we have to remember, and I have to remind myself a lot, that it's really not about me. I'm not the one getting the reading. It has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the sitter and the relationship that they had with their loved one. And I think if we can just really remember that, it kind of takes off that pressure of like, they're not judging you the way that other mediums or other people are. They just want to know that their loved ones are with them. And you only need really one or two pieces of evidence, of hard evidence, to show that.
Right.
You don't need to go on a spiel of 10,000 different pieces of evidence. I mean, there could be two heavy hitters that you bring through, and then we get to the message, because that's what they're there for. They're not there for a list of evidence. They know what their family member drove and what they like to wear and the hobbies that they did. They want to know, well, what's going on now? Because I'm going through something really hard in my life. And do they have any guidance? Or I need to know that they're with me. And it's really the message that it's the bread and butter of the reading.
And I think for everybody who is honestly, who does anything, and we're watching these people that we look up to, it's because it's crazy to me watching you guys when you talk about feeling insecure watching someone else, because when I watch you guys, you seem so confident and so good. And I think that is really important, that everybody always has some sort of scared shitless inside of them.
Oh yeah.
Everybody looks so brave when they're doing their thing and so far ahead of you, but that doesn't mean that they're not scared out of their minds and what they're doing. We all do that. And I think when you're exactly right, that the people who everybody has the part of them in them to communicate with their guides, the universe, their past loved ones, but sometimes it's just not the path you're going to take. It's not going to be a path I'm going to take. And so I go to mediums for those messages, and that you guys get to give that gift. Honestly, I'm about to cry. And the fact that we've made it 24 episodes without me crying yet, I will say is insane. But it's just really special when you can get those things.
Mhm.
Because when they pass, all you want is those things, the words, the feeling that you can't have physically on this in our human form any longer. And it's just really special that you guys provide that for people. And that's what makes me, I think, the saddest for sitters that are so close is they're missing these beautiful messages that is what they're seeking, just because they were so dead set on something specific. Like those little moments of that connection means so much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. That's
Ugh.
mediumship. That's mediumship. That's the most important thing, is that.
Yeah.
And I think the sitters that do have that, I think they learn a lot from it, though, coming out of it, because you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? And you are going to have harder sitters, just like, with harder clients in anything that you do.
I actually love that you just said that, because one of the things I'd like to talk about grief one day as an episode.
Yeah.
I'm honestly not ready yet. But
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is a new thing for me is finding those things that you didn't know before, or those pictures you never saw before, because it's this new relationship you have with someone you lost. And so the sitters who walk out of those and maybe didn't feel they got their message, but then learn those messages later, that is that new connection, that new thing that they're learning about that person that they lost. And it's also a new part of their grief, because grief, I mean, to be alive means you will have grief. To love means you will have grief. And it's not, I think it's very interesting that we put such a timeline on grief of like, okay, if I go through these things, eventually I'll be fine and I'll be happy. But grief is always there. And it's just how we let it be part of our lives. And I forget where I was going with that. What was I just saying?
You're just letting it flow. It's just
I,
flowing.
I was.
That there
But
needs to be a timeline when there doesn't.
right. But there is no timeline. And
Right.
I think, some people, each relationship with those that we love and lose is different. And sometimes that can make us feel really guilty. That is something I'm going through, and I will talk about it later. It is a very big struggle when you have two different two different griefs at the same time, and they are so vastly different.
Yeah.
And then you have this struggle of why is it? But that's just the relationship you have. And it doesn't mean that still, even though they're different, when I am finding pictures I've never seen before, that feeling is still the same. It's that newness, that new connection. And it's like a new relationship with that person, that pet, whoever that you lost. And I think that is really special. I'm so glad you said that about when you leave and you learn this, it's information you didn't know. That's a whole new part of them. That's a whole new part of your relationship. And just because they're not here physically doesn't mean you can't still have it and your relationship can't change.
Yeah.
Right.
And things around the people that you lost, like their things or their jewelry or their collars or whatever it is, they hold so much energy. And it's really like, when I lost my aunt, that was one of the biggest first losses I've ever had to face at 14 years old. And I had her necklace, and I wore that necklace every day for years. I mean, for years. I just recently started taking it off and wearing other jewelry because I felt closer to her.
Yeah.
And it's like I always thought I was just like that was just kind of like in my head, or like, well, yeah, it was hers. But no, because it really does put you closer to them.
Yeah.
Like all of that really like just important memorabilia holds energy. Everything is energy,
Yeah.
and it holds those memories. So, allow yourself to go to that place, to connect with them, because you're going to feel that energy. I know a lot about guilt when it comes to grief, and I think that that's more common than what we really
Yeah.
even talk about, is how we always feel like we could have done something differently, or and it's a hard thing to move through. But the beautiful thing about mediumship is that they're not suffering, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like to know that, and it's hard here. I mean, it is really hard here. It's very dense here. There's a lot of really tragic things that go on here on Earth. When I say here, I mean Earth. There's emotions we have to deal with and suffering we have to deal with. And, we're always wondering, are they okay? Are they okay? They are more than okay. They're home. They're connected to their home.
They're worried about us
Right,
being
right,
here.
right.
I had a really interesting experience, and it was actually with that lady at that bookstore that we went to. And I
Oh,
think it
yes.
is also interesting because I think that was the first. It's also to keep in mind that mediums also specialize in different things.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think it's really important to be open to, okay, maybe they connect with people and they connect with pets, but they don't connect the same. And that was one of I really think it was one of the things where she was a pet connection. And I think it's because she especially was so deeply involved with her own pet and her own pet's death, and it was recent, and so maybe that really strengthened her connection. But it's one of the things I never felt like our first dog. I mean, he was 15, had cancer when we rescued him. Like we knew we were just his soft space to be for the rest of his days. And when he passed, I didn't feel him anymore. And a lot of times that made me really sad.
Of
But
course.
like there was also a comfort in it. And when I talked to her and she was like, he's like, they don't leave you, but he's living another life. And I think that and I don't know why I never put those things together. I believe so fully in the timelines and things like that. And I'm like, duh. He's doing something so much more important and
Yeah.
giving the love he had for us to someone else. I'm like, obviously, I think it is so cool doing different mediumship readings or any sort of readings with different people and the things that come about it, because there'll be obvious things, there'll be new things, there'll be some people that are full of shit. Like it's you get such interesting readings to really put together and make something of it. And all of it, even the full of shit ones are a memory. Mark and I did that. We went to get massages like a couple years ago. We always take like a day near Valentine's Day, but we don't celebrate Valentine's Day. We celebrate Mark and Lauren Day. And we went to get massages, and across the street was this like tarot, or like maybe it said medium. I don't remember what it said, but I was like, we should go. We were like 45 minutes before our appointment, and we showed up, and this woman, I mean, she answered the door in her PJs. She was very caught off guard that anybody rang her doorbell, and she was like, well, I have someone coming in 10 minutes. Can you come back at this end? And we were like, okay. And we were literally walking on her driveway. She's like, wait, come back. I'll do it now. I'll make it work. And we were like, okay. And then we like sat down, and I mean, I don't know, maybe we caught her on a bad day. I don't know what she was, the things she was telling us were just not, I don't know. And I think her message, it wasn't even like, she wasn't pulling anybody through. It wasn't a guide message. She was just kind of telling us, I guess, like about ourselves, but they were things that, like, I mean, we knew. So I don't know, but I don't want to discredit her, because to someone else, that message, she might be a perfect reader for them. And that
Exactly.
woman, like, she was a great reader for me, but for you guys, when you were talking to her about human things and like not it, it's very, and I still like, God, man, that bitch, she told me about Raleigh's stomach, and I was just, and I
That
didn't.
lady, the woman that was at that shop.
He did. I don't know. He always ate a bunch of stuff, and so I didn't even correlate what she was trying to tell me until later. And so these things, and that was at what, a year ago?
Yeah.
So like sometimes these messages come through and you're like, okay, I was talking shit on this person. And then you're like, sorry. Like that, because it's just sometimes it
Well,
doesn't
that's
connect
an
in that
important
moment.
point, because there's no time, like past, present, future is all happening simultaneously in the spirit world.
Yep.
So there can absolutely be things that come through that to the medium feel very significant, but you might have no idea, and then it'll make sense later,
Do
you
you
know?
feel that when spirits come through, that they have the same memory of our time here? Or are they like, because I feel like, and this is just my assumption, is kind of like time really doesn't exist in when you pass, and that is wonderful, because we all know my feelings about time here anyway, but I'm wondering if that's part of the hard message, is when you're coming through on the other side, where time means nothing anymore, but time means so much to us here, those cross lines can just really,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not even like you guys are just speaking a different language. You are speaking multiple languages within. It's like when a language has different dialects based on where you go. So like the people in Mexico have different words and meanings of the same word in Spain, or like
Yeah.
those just the tiniest little cross up means a whole different message. And that's probably
Well, here, I mean,
crazy wild for you
different
guys.
states call
Yes.
regular things different things. Like some places say pop for all soda, some say
Mhm.
soda, some call it a Coke, even if it's a Sprite. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
their dialects, the way that
Uh-huh.
the South, we know like the Southern accent, and same thing.
Mhm.
It really is like charades.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Yeah.
Like really trying to use all your clairs is really going to help you, because if you're just relying on one, good
Yeah,
luck.
If you're good at Pictionary.
Good luck. Like,
I
because
know.
I mean, Emily and I both are extremely clairvoyant, and it's very easy to get,
Yeah.
to rely on that clair, because seeing is seeing.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
But oh my gosh, seeing doesn't always mean what you have to rely on your other clairs, because it can get
Well,
sticky.
I have an example of that. One of the first readings I ever did, it was on Becky. So we weren't even reading sitters yet. We were reading each other in class. And I brought through her grandmother, and she showed me a diamond ring. So I took that as do you have the diamond ring? Was it passed down? Well, it turned out it had nothing to do with the diamond ring at all. She was trying to say that Becky is a diamond in the rough, out of all stones, she's you know what I'm saying? So, but I took it as a diamond ring. She must have had a diamond ring, or it was
We'll
passed,
find this
something about
ring.
the actual ring, and it had nothing to do with the ring.
Our
So,
sentient will see it. That's a
mhm.
gotta lean into it, because
Yep.
that's a hard one for me too, because it's like we're so clairvoyant, and it's
Right.
like obviously you must have a diamond ring.
Right, exactly.
Well, and
Oh
it's
God.
probably you want to fall where you're most comfortable because then you feel most confident with the
Yeah.
message that you're giving. But then things like that happen, you're like, well, what now?
Right.
One of the biggest things to learn through mediumship is like, don't stop in your tracks when you get that no, because there's something there. There's something to it. Don't give up. But phew, it's an incredible modality. I mean, it really, really is. It's just so,
Complicated.
it is. It definitely is.
We should
Uh,
also do an episode on the power of no, because I think that is one of the most important lessons in business life, you name it.
Yes.
And especially when it's so one-sided of a message and
Mhm.
those no's back and how you guys work through it. I think that would be a crazy good conversation.
Yeah,
yeah, I think so too. Those
definitely.
no's are never going to go anywhere
And
because
there
we're
was,
human. We're not perfect.
Yeah. But
right.
sometimes they do because those no's were just a no for right now. And
Mhm.
then turns out it's a
There,
different
yes.
yes later.
Mhm.
Right. Also, I wanted to say that mediumship is not only just about bringing through deceased people, but also guides, guardians, angel, like you can bring through any type of spirit. And I've had one before where the person brought through someone and I was thinking, nope, that doesn't resonate because that's no one that I know that passed. And then after the reading, I realized, oh, that is a guide. There's always that to consider as well.
And that lady, I mean, she probably was still alive when she was able to
Right.
connect with him.
Yeah. It's hard though. I mean,
It
because we
is.
do, it's like, we do have an idea of like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know for me, like just as an example, with my aunt, one of the most defining moments of my life was how she passed, because it had such a impact on who I am. And I was very much a part of that process, unfortunately, because she fell off my horse. And that was the snowball effect into how she eventually passed. She didn't pass from that injury, but it was like a snowball effect. And, I've had her come through many times. And, I'm always expecting like for that to be brought up. And she never brings it up,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not how she died, doesn't define her life.
Right.
And why should it? But for me, it changed my life.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be open to receiving whatever comes through, because typically there's significance in that. And, keeping an open mind, it's hard, but it's important. And jotting your notes and writing your journals and doing those things will be really helpful later on down the road. And
Mm-hmm.
now
I'm
sometimes
always
a no, absolutely. A no can absolutely be a no. I'm not saying that it can't, but just, don't go, it's not, mediumship is not black and white. It is
mm-hmm.
not. And it's going to look different every time. It's going to feel different every time. And keep that in mind when you're getting a reading or when you're doing it yourself. Give
Yeah.
yourself grace.
Yes, definitely give yourself grace because everybody, even the most confident people, are
Yeah.
scared about something.
Just keep it out of the reads. Have that moment after.
Yep.
That's all I'll say. Yeah.
Who wants to do our collective pool today?
Oh, I will.
What are
Oh, I'm gonna do
options?
the elemental empath to this
Is that the
deck.
new one?
Yes. I cannot get enough of it. It's
Gorgeous.
gorgeous. And I will pull a card for the collective. We have a card for the collective, please, and good spirit. The collective. Ooh, this card is the collective.
Okie dokie.
Uh-huh.
And it says, all is connected, collective growth supported.
I
All
love
is
that
connected.
card.
A collective. I'm literally like, can I
Ooh,
have a card for the collective?
it
There you
gave
go.
me goosebumpies.
Spirit be spiriting. Okay, so this is number 9. Let me find it here. What is the collective consciousness? We are a collective, connected as one, having an individual experience. We live this life as a single person, but we are all connected to each other. The collective consciousness card is a reminder that on an energetic level, we are all intertwined. It is easy to become disconnected from others and get lost in our individual experience, but take a moment to remember that we are all in this together. We are a divine collective sharing this planet and this life. We are not alone. Because we are all connected, what affects one group can infect the entire collective. We can try to think of ourselves as separate, but when catastrophe strikes one country, there is a heaviness felt around the world. We saw this with the 2020 global pandemic. Many of those relatively unaffected could still feel the heaviness of the world as it went through pain. To connect with the collective is to connect to the universe. You can tap into collective knowledge, ancestors, past lives, guides, and other realms, zooming out and gaining a wider perspective of your life. This card is also about collective evolution. As we evolve and heal on our own journey, we are raising the vibration of the collective. It is important to do what we can to help lift others up as well. Since we are all connected, we need each other to evolve and embody a more conscious lifestyle on this planet. Lastly, this card encourages you to connect with the flow of the whole while staying grounded and connected to your own energy so that you don't constantly leave yourself open. When you connect to the light and let it tap you into the flow your life can take, the people it can connect you with, and the path you can walk. Let it also connect you with the influence you can have on the world around you.
That's
That was
perfect.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
This was a very therapeutic episode.
Yes.
It was. I'm just dying over. Can I have a card for the collective?
Here, let me just give it to you.
Yeah.
Here, glad you asked.
Mm.
And it flew out. I don't know if you could see that, but it was
Yeah,
like
I saw you go. Oh.
Hmm.
so funny.
So, before we say goodbye, we have two things. The first thing is for our listeners, don't forget our bite tag promo. With bite tag, you can get a cute little tag for your pets, dogs or cats. And so, if in the unfortunate instance that they are lost, whoever finds them can get them back to you quickly with a quick scan of their little code on their tag. And our listeners get 15% off with the code Team Spirit Pod. And second, so this episode is going to come out April 5th. And then going forward, we're going to go on a bi-weekly release. So the one after that will come out on the 19th and going forward. So it will help us with recording, editing time. It'll also, I think, really help our listeners to not
Catch up.
feel sometimes I feel so rushed to miss the podcast I listen to because I'm like, oh my God, I'm so behind. So we think this will be nice. And one day maybe go back to weekly. It'll be
Yeah.
fun. So thank you for joining us. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Team Spirit Podcast. Carrie and Emily can both be found on TikTok and Instagram, and they go live on TikTok for readings. You can find Carrie at Clarity by Cam, CAM, and Emily at Enchanted Mystic by MK. And that's all for today. So we will see you next time.